Today, we're going to cover a topic that I'm somewhat of an expert in, and I've got so much experience. I have 25 years experience teaching young children. I have been working in Sri Lanka. Obviously, I grew up there. I know what it's like to be a child and what is expected of children in Sri Lanka. I worked for 10 years in England, and for the last 15 years, I've been raising my young boys and working here in Sweden as a nursery teacher. So I've spent a lot of time in all three cultures with children, and I have to say I finally understand after all of that experience why Sweden continues to rank among the top 5 countries in the world to raise your children. The first thing that shocked me so much about Sweden is that each child has a voice and their voice is taken seriously. In Sweden, a child's voice carries so much weight in a nursery school, with your teachers, with your parents. And I think it is the most important thing when you're bringing up your children. You want to allow your children to feel confident, to be safe, so that they can voice their opinions, even if they're different from yours. They learn to argue respectfully. They learn probably not at the beginning, but it is a learning process. So they learn to argue. They learn to stand up for themselves. They learn to voice their opinion, which all of these things are going to be greatly helpful for them when they become adults. You don't want to bring up your children to teach them that their voices are not important. And the real reason I want children to be outspoken, to voice their opinion, and to be strong and confident when doing that, because that allows less children to be abused physically, sexually. Even in Sweden, there are children who are obviously abused, but at least if you give them a voice and you make sure that they know that their voice is heard and that you are listening to them and what they have to say is important as well, they're more likely, if some parent or friend or relative or a stranger tries to be inappropriate with them. Because otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to create children who think that adults are always correct and that you don't question your adults, and whatever they say and whatever they do, that they are correct and you are just to follow. That is a dangerous way of bringing up children, in my opinion. It really is. Now, does that lead to children arguing, being disrespectful to their adults and fighting back? And does it come with all of their problems? Absolutely, it does. It comes with a number of other problems. As a parent, I'm quite willing to work through all of that, all of the frustrations and the demands that creates on my parenting with my children. I am hands down all for it if it means that my child's voice is going to save them from being abused by anyone. So I think it's so important, and it hands down number 1 on my list, that children in Sweden are given a voice, and not just given a voice. They are heard, they are respected, and what they say matters right from a young age, even when they are 2 and 3 years old. Number 2 thing that shocked me the most is how independent children are here in Sweden. Now, independence is twofold. Some children in countries really have to be independent quite early from the get-go because they're poor. They have to work, they have to help make money for the family, or they have to look after their siblings. That kind of independence pushes them and it gives them a lot of stress. I'm not talking about that kind of independence. Here in Sweden, kids are independent to cycle to school by themselves, to walk to school, even at the young age of 6 without supervision. My children are really confident in able to go out. I'm going to tell you a story. Got my son to cycle to school. He's football on a Monday, and then he cycles back to my mother-in-law's house, or my mother-in-law meets him halfway. So what I do is I call his school and tell them, okay, now you can send my son on his way to meet his grandmother, and then I will call his grandmother and tell her, now he's coming, you can leave the house and you can meet halfway. Now, last week what happened was I was having a meeting and I completely forgot. I called his school, but I didn't call her. So he cycled to where they normally meet, and he was waiting and waiting and waiting, and suddenly when I realized 20 minutes later that I hadn't told her that I'd already called his school, I panicked. Obviously, I can't get a hold of him. He's no phone. Luckily, it's really close to my school. So I told the staff, wait, I ran out, went there. He was not there. Then I called my mother-in-law, or she called me actually just at the same time, to say that he had cycled to her house. And then he had told her, if you were not here, I thought I'd come here first, which is what I normally do. And if you were not here, I would cycle back to my mum. Now, that kind of critical thinking and that kind of confidence only comes with allowing your children to do these things. I allow them to go. Does my heart go pitter patter? Yes, it does. When olden days, we never really checked where all our children are. And I understand it's a safety issue, and I live in Sweden. We will get to that. But that is one of the best things, I think, that you in Sweden for raising children, that we as parents don't feel bad to give them that early independence. And I really love that about Sweden. Third on my list of things why Sweden is the best country to raise your children in is less academic pressure at an early age. Up in Sri Lanka, children start, and even in England, in most countries, children start school at the age of 4.5 to 5. Here in Sweden, they start proper school at 7. Yes, you heard me correct, at 7. In Scandinavia, it is more of a focus on play and nurturing than academics early on. So even though my eldest son goes in grade 5, he has exams, of course, but none of those exams make him feel like he's not going to pass to the next class. So that is a great thing, I think, here in Sweden, because I don't think, I think it's really unnecessary that you put that kind of pressure on children. I do think children do balance out halfway. Now, I'm going to give you another story here. My husband and his brother grew up in Sweden. So when they used to go to Sri Lanka on holiday, all of their cousins who were in the same age were already in school, reading, writing, doing maths, and they didn't know any of those things at the same age. But right now, when they became adults, everybody sort of is equal. Are they having worse jobs? No, they're not. Are they very academically inclined? Yes, they are. My husband has a law background and his brother is in finance. So they did really well for themselves academically. They were very knowledgeable and they were very good at studying. I have also a lot of friends who have here in Sweden. I have a dentist and I have a friend who has a PhD in linguists. So all of our friends are really, really educated and very good at studies, unlike me. But I think it doesn't necessarily mean just because you put that kind of pressure on children right at the young age of 5, 6, 7, 8, that it's going to make them any better at their studies later on. I really don't think so. We have seen sort of reading and writing go down and comprehension here in Sweden, but that's of all countries in the world because obviously our kids are not reading enough. They're on the phones and on the TV and on the iPads. So that has something to do with that, universally, nothing to do with the fact that children here in Sweden start school that much later, and the pressures of academics on children start much, much later when they're in their teens, which I think is really great. You won't see children here in Sweden carrying these sort of really heavy backpacks that they do in Australia and Asia. I have friends who've also told me about their cousins in Australia. The kids have these really heavy backpacks, and our kids go to school without any books, really. My oldest son brings some books home, sometimes when he's not able to finish his work at school, but for the most part, they do all of their work at school. My number 4 on the list is how much outdoor play young children in Sweden get. Now, do we as parents and children take advantage of all of the outdoor spaces that we have here in Sweden? And we have a multitude of them. No, we don't. Unfortunately, we parents as well get stuck inside the house, but there is so much outdoor activity focus here in Sweden. And even in the nursery school, right from a young age, it is written in it's called Läroplan here in Sweden. And the focus on outdoor play and activity for children is really high up on the list. And especially nowadays, since we're starting to move away from all of the digital I can't remember the words in Sweden, of all of the equipment that iPads and phones and screens and all of that, we have moved away from that, especially in the nursery school. Young children, we are not allowed to use any sort of iPad or phones or anything with them. So that has come into play, and with that we are really focusing on a lot of outdoor play. The children have so many parks and forests, and you go berry picking. It's so lovely. They go hiking. It is just a great country for creating outdoor experiences with your young children, which really develop their mind, which later on helps them to study. So it really is a big correlation between physical activity and your mind and your academics later on in life. So that has to be number 4. Number 5 on my list is safety. Now, this is one of the points that they make on the statistics as well. Sweden relatively is a very safe country for our children to grow up in. I have absolutely no fear of anybody abducting my children. Does it happen here? Yes, it has. But where I live and in the areas, in most areas, you don't go around worrying about that. I'm more worried probably about the kids on these electrical scooters that go really fast, that they would probably knock my son down. So I make sure he wears a helmet and he's well protected. But that is probably my number one safety issue here in Sweden, especially in the summer months. I think that has to top my safety list, even though my kids walk in the dark during the winter months to and from school. Now let's get to the 5 points very quickly about why Sweden is always ranked. We covered the safety issue, and that is on the list. And obviously, parenting leave. We get 450 days as a couple to raise, to be home with your children. The reasons that rank Sweden top on the statistics list is really good healthcare, accessible healthcare to most people here in Sweden, or everybody really. Children get free healthcare, free dental up to the age of 18. So it really is bar none, one of the best countries for your health, especially because you don't have to pay for it. Now, do we pay high taxes? Yes, we do. But in hindsight, you get so much for it. Equality amongst women and men. A lot of men stay home with their kids as well. So that really helps to rank Sweden, because a lot of countries are still working on that sort of equality between men and women. Are we perfect here in Sweden? No, we're not. But are we far ahead of most countries? For sure we are. So that has to be on their list as well. Also, free schooling system here in Sweden is really good. Schools are free. Universities are free, so parents don't have that added stress. So all of those reasons, and obviously the safety, which we covered at the beginning, are really the reasons why Sweden and a lot of the Scandinavian countries rank top 5 in the world when it comes to raising your children. I hope you enjoyed listening to my perspective. I thought instead of rambling on a whole heap of reasons that everybody knows and statistically, I thought it would be interesting for you to understand where I was coming from with all of my experience and background. So I hope those things have given you food for thought. If you are a parent planning to move to Sweden, I would highly recommend it. It might be different to how you're used to raising your children, but I do think in the long run, towards the end, when they become adults, I do think their parenting method and the reasons that I gave are going to really help make your child a confident, independent person who's respectful but still able to ask for what they want and what they deserve. And after all, isn't that how we want to raise our children? We want them to have their own voice. It is a balance, but I do think the way we raise children in Sweden will help with that as and when they become adults. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up. As always, comment, keep it respectful in the description box below. Thank you so much for being here. If you new, thank you for clicking on the video, and I will see you next time.